Both those guys playing great football right now. Quentin, along with what he does from his defensive linebacker position for us, was a leading tackler. Also had 3 tackles on the kickoff coverage team and 1 forced fumble, which is huge. He's used primarily as a safety on his half of the field when he goes down, which means your safety's making a lot of tackles, which scares you a little bit. But we got the right guy doing that. And in all honesty, they have some of the best special teams play in the country. And statistically, if you look at what they did last year and what they were doing this year, it's easy to see that and recognize that. So going into the game, that was a huge emphasis for us, was to play really well in special teams, because when you're an underdog and you're battling offensively and you're battling defensively, it's the special teams that can start separating you from field position and start separating you from points, and then all of a sudden the game that you're hoping is going to be a close game and you're going to have a shot in the fourth quarter to get it done gets out of reach. Our special teams did play in a manner that enabled us to have a shot in the fourth quarter. I was really proud of the way they played. Farkas did a great job of punting. If you notice, we had him rugby punting a fair amount of the time, which he did a great job of. He punted once or twice where, what we were interested in a pooch punt. Now, he's got the kind of body and kind of leg that enables him on a pooch punt, which you usually do when you're inside the opponent's area and you're punting, you're just going for height. He can still kick a ball 40 yards and get great hang time, over 4-second hang time on some kicks, or approaching 4 seconds, and that's huge in terms of coverage. So we didn't allow them, one of the best kickoff return teams in the country, to get things done at the level that they wanted to get things done at. I held my breath sometimes, but because those backs, when they're taking that ball up in there, man, that's the way you're supposed to return a punt and a kickoff. You're supposed to get everybody in the stadium starting to come out of their seat, and they do that. And so, to our players' credit, they did a great job across the board for the most part in special teams. So I was really proud of their play in that area. Louis obviously kicked too many field goals. He's kicking too many field goals on the year. That's an area that we've got to address. I'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into this in terms of red zone offense and red zone defense. But he's done everything that we've asked him to do. Now, he's not kicking the ball out of the end zone. Their guy, we just thought we should have just ran out to the 25-yard line and saved his leg for another game or something, because you weren't going to get a return. Their punter in pregame, he and his average, if he's not the best in the country in terms of punting the ball, more power to the guy that is, because they got to be extra special, because this guy was something. And in the end, if you look at it statistically, though, our punting average was 42.4 with a few good bounces along the way. His was 39.3, because he had one or two that weren't typical of what he's all about, and so all that entered into the picture to make it a game that gave us a shot in the fourth quarter. In talking about those field goals, they're difficult calls. You'd like to go on fourth down and 2 and 3 and 4 to try to get a touchdown, but when you're able to kick a field goal and keep yourself within one score of the team, you probably are going to do that. You're probably going to kick the field goal to keep yourself within one score. If it gets to be where you're 2 scores out, 3 scores out, now the decision somewhat gets made for you. You're not going to have a shot at winning it by kicking field goals. But we got to find a way to put more touchdowns on the board and kick less field goals. And that's got to come from us as coaches in our approach to things. That's got to come somewhat from our players in terms of getting things done in short yardage and also especially in the red zone. There are a lot of things we did well. The turnovers, again, we won that. Tennessee had 1 turnover, we had 0. They did have the ball on the ground 5 times. That turnover was a pass interception. 5 times the ball was on the ground, and we didn't get 1, which I don't think is going to happen to us again, certainly not this year, maybe never. Because I will tell you this, our guys were playing hard. They were hustling to the football. They were always running to the ball. We had 3-4 guys around it. It just seemed to bounce away from us and to the 1 or 2 guys that they had around it. So that was tough. We'd have gotten a couple of those. Who knows? Who knows? But that's in the past. Sacks, again, third game in a row, we've not given up a sack. I think there's a lot of things that can be accredited to that. I think Greg is doing a great job of moving in the pocket and escaping when he needs to escape and sitting in there and throwing the ball and taking the hit where some guys would just start to run and get sacked. I think a lot of our routes are such that they're coming off of fairly quick play action routes, and even a lot of our dropbacks are pretty quick throws. So that's helping. And then I think our line has done an excellent job. They have protected our quarterback very, very well here in the first 3 games, and they had a lot of blitzes. They were a blitzing football team, and a lot of exotic blitzes that you don't see a lot. Some of those are NFL kind of blitzes, and so they surprised us with a few. So they certainly must have taken us somewhat seriously to put in a few new blitzes, and so. A combination of things have enabled us to have that stat. You look at sacks allowed. Tennessee gave up 3 sacks. Our guys got 3 sacks against them on the year. As far as sacks are concerned, we're certainly probably tied for first. I don't know who else has 0 after 3 games, but there must be other schools, and so we're at least tied for first in the country with that. And in getting 10 turnovers, 10 sacks on the year, which our defense has gotten, that puts us at 15th in the country. So, what a great job there by our players and our coaches getting something like that accomplished. There's a lot of stats that certainly you can go over, and they all reflect, stats. Some people say, well, stats, are for the team that doesn't win. I don't buy that. I say stats are a reflection of what you are and what you did, and stats don't lie. It's what transpired, and so there are a fair number of things that we're really doing well at. I mentioned some of them. There are some things that we need to improve quickly on, and need to improve somewhat of a great deal in that regard. And I'll, on that, skip to the red zone stats a little bit, because that's somewhat discouraging for us. If you know that in this past ball game, Tennessee was in the red zone 4 times, they scored 4 TDs. We were in the red zone 4 times, we scored 1 TD. And so that in itself can either win the game for you or take you out of the game. And when you look at it on the season, offensively, we've been in the red zone the first 3 ball games 18 times. So in being in the red zone 18 times, that ranks us 9th in the country in terms of number of times we've been in the red zone. Red zone scores, we've scored 16 out of those 18, which ranks us at 7th. But where we really fall down is red zone TDs. At 7 out of those 18 times we've had red zone TDs. That ranks us at 122nd in the country. And so that jumps out at you pretty strongly. And so something that we've been looking at, addressing. We'll continue to spend a lot of time at it. I'm asking our coaches to, and this is on both sides of the ball because I'll go over the defensive stats here soon. I'm asking our coaches to look at it from a standpoint of what we're doing down in the red zone. What are we doing play-wise? Are our schemes what they need to be? Is our play calling what it needs to be on both sides of the ball? I'm asking them to dig into all this and to obviously have some better results. Our team, they're battling hard. Can we as a team do better in the red zone? Probably so. But obviously, it's a combination of things. But as coaches, we need to improve our end, and we need to make sure that our players understand the turnaround that we need there in the red zone. Defensively, the red zone possessions have been 11 in the first 3 ball games. So 11 to 18, I'll take that any day. But if you look at red zone scores, they're scoring, we're 93rd in the country. They've scored 11 out of 11. And the tough thing is that they scored 9 TDs out of 11 opportunities. And that puts us at 115th in the country. So it doesn't take a genius to figure out where you gotta start looking and what you gotta start getting changed. And so we're going about that, hopefully in an efficient manner. Obviously, it's easy to sit up here and spill out statistics and say we're going to make things different. We're going to look at it from all angles, and we are going to work at making it different. If we're going to be a football team that is going to get accomplished what we want to as we play our 4th game here in non-conference and then get into our conference schedule, if we're going to be the team that we want to be, that cannot continue to be what it's been. Okay, talked a little bit longer than I intended on the opening opening statement. So if you have any questions, feel free.
You went pretty deep there with the red zone stuff. I was going to ask you if you had identified one factor or a couple factors that have led to those numbers being what they've been so far.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to ask you to blueprint everything you're looking to change, but what has stood out when you've examined those numbers and you went back to look at film to see why those numbers are what they are?
I think we've had the normal number of plays where every now and then a ball gets dropped or the play just isn't made. We've had the normal number of plays that other teams have that, you have the ball caught in the end zone and the ball gets stripped. So I kind of throw those out, when you study it. And you look at, have you been able to run the ball as successfully in the red zone as you'd like? Obviously, if you can, then that opens up everything for you. And so we've got to run the ball better. We ran it pretty well in the first 2 games. Did not run it well in this game. The opponent had something to do with that, of course. But we have got to look at operating more efficiently and more in tune to executing at a high level versus being sophisticated maybe when we get down there. I don't have the answers yet. We're still digging, you know. I gave a lot of questions to our coaches, and so now we're digging into how we can do better, and what's it going to take to get more TDs on the board.
Do you have an update on Dorian or Malik, and what is the plan at running back if those two can't go this next weekend?
Well, the plan is to continue with Poppy being a multifaceted back for us. Vinny, how many of you guys know Vinny's last name? Raise your hand if you do. All right, that's some of you, most of you. Okay, not all of you. Vinny has popped up for us. And I think he's a great walk-on. He's really going to help our program, and he's helping our program right now. But Vinny will continue to be a part of this. He got valuable experience in the Tennessee game. And so now, any game he plays in, he should be able to handle emotionally, I think, because obviously he did a good job in this last ball game when we just kind of threw him in. And so he'll continue to get better in terms of picking up all the pass blocking schemes and knowing when to hop to the other side, knowing when to release, when not to release, knowing all the aim points of the running back angles to hit the hole, and then reading what you need to read. He'll continue to just keep getting better and better. We are going to today we have a young group. What we do is we have a shorter practice on Monday, and usually we do things like red zone, short yardage, because teams don't change a lot of that. They're pretty much what they are from game one through. When you talk about red zone defense, when you talk, they may try to surprise you with something here and there, but pretty much what they're going to be all about. So Monday's pretty easy to try to get ready for that. But at the end of practice, what we do is we have a 10-minute young team practice, and we'll get anywhere from 16 to 20 reps for those young players that really aren't playing in the games. What we're going to do is have Bo take running back plays during that young team period, and we'll have a couple more young team periods as we go through the week, and so I think he'll get enough to again know what he's doing. He played, I don't know, mid-20s, I think, in snaps in this last ball game as a safety. So, Kylan's doubtful for this game. It remains to be seen where how much play he'll get in defense, and Bo's on a lot of special teams, So we're not in great shape in terms of numbers at the spot. Dorian, there is a possibility that he could be ready for this one. It's a matter of working through some soreness. I think a lot of swelling has gone down, and so there's a chance, and you don't get any tougher than Dorian Brown. He is one tough football player, and so if he can possibly play, he'll be staring me in the face, wanting to get in. And Malik, it's certainly a day-by-day thing now, but it could very well be that he's not ready to go in this one. So we could be in somewhat the same situation going in, and then if anybody gets banged up, we're right back to where we were last week. And you know what? Tennessee had a lot to do with our second half production not being as good, but obviously we had the running back situation as it was. We had Vinny taking snaps for the very first time in the second half. Poppy being used a little more as a running back than what we probably normally would in terms of using him as also a flanker. And so that hurt us a little bit in the second half. We had 2 tackles that were playing well, that were not able to finish the game, and in the second half they weren't available. And so, Austin Pleasant played some football, which he hasn't done much of here at Ohio University so far. And so, when you take 2 tackles out of that has some reflection on maybe the productivity in the second half also.
Aside from some numbers, as injuries occurred, there are a lot of teams in the country where the gap in athleticism might be shown when you play a team like Tennessee. That wasn't the case for your ball club on Saturday. I think that says a lot about where you're at now and maybe some increased production there. Was that something that you expected to see, or were you even very pleasantly surprised that the gap wasn't there at all?
No, I feel the gap is not a big gap, and I felt that if we took care of the ball, we didn't allow them the big play in special teams, and didn't allow them the explosive play with the receivers and the running backs, of course, because they're big and they can run through some tackles, and then before you know it, a 7-8 yard gain's a 30-yard gain with those guys. If we could just keep that from happening, control that a little bit, I felt comfortable with the way Greg was playing, that we could make some plays against them with our receivers and going in. We'd like to have had our full allotment of running backs, but that wasn't the case. So, going in, I felt that we certainly had a shot at getting that thing won. And, we always step on the field feeling that way here. But obviously you play the number 15 team in the country, and I don't know what we were down underdog-wise, point-wise, but it wasn't small. And I didn't feel that was a reflection of our football team. I think our football team's capable of stepping on the field and beating anybody.
Was that Penny's first time taking snaps with the starters? At least maybe in practice, I know during games.
Yeah, we give him, in games, yeah.
In games, but in practice too?
In practice, he got a few this week, just because we only had 3, and you get them in some kind of rotation so they can run plays out, get used to breaking things, and so he got some during the week, but again, that's not a great number.
And then, obviously you don't want to have this situation come up at a position, but is it nice knowing that you're worrying about this now and not in the middle of October, November in conference play?
Yeah, you don't want to worry about it ever, but if it comes about, we need to work through it now. So far, the way it looks, there's only AJ's injury was a season-ending injury. The rest of them, we should be able to bounce back from. It's just a matter of how long, and so you gotta you want everybody you got, no matter who you're playing and when you're playing them. But obviously, as you get into conference play and you're more than halfway through the season, things can happen, and you're just hoping that they don't happen at a level that makes it very difficult for you.
What have you learned about Greg Wyndham through the first 3 weeks?
That he's really a tough football player. The way he runs, the way he hangs in the pocket, gets the pass off, takes the hit, that he's got the kind of arm that can make every throw, that he's a tremendous competitor. He prepares really, really well for each and every single football game, that he's showing leadership.
He's not been perfect, no one is, but has he met any kind of, or any expectations that you guys had back in August? Has he kind of went down the checklist and crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's about what you expected or what you want out of your quarterback here? So far?
Yeah, coaches are hard to please, but he has really operated at a level that that we feel great about. You know, he has really established himself as a true quarterback in our conference that can beat you or beat anybody if everybody's playing with him. Now, you know, is he perfect? Has he made some mistakes along the way? Does he still need to improve on some reads and those kind of things? You know, that still needs to continue to get better. But he's a guy that works so hard at everything that I believe that will get better. And it's not something that's a huge negative for him. You know, it's just not at the level that some of the stuff that he's really doing well is.
Coach, you mentioned in your opening statement that you needed to improve on things quickly. Obviously, you know, scoring touchdowns in the red zone, that's one of the things. But is there anything else that you want to elaborate on?
Well, you mean across the board?
Yeah, just across the board. You said that, you know, you needed to improve on things quickly. So besides red zone, scoring touchdowns,
Yeah,
what
yeah,
else?
I could start naming several things because I'm not a guy that pleases easy.
Yeah.
And so there obviously are things, you know, we want to be better in our punt return units. You know, Poppy's a guy that can be an electrifying returner, so we've got to give him more opportunities. That's got to get better. I want to run the ball consistently. You know, we've shown flashes of being a really good running football team. You know, this last game, but there were reasons. You know, I think we were set back a little bit. I don't want teams to be able to have the big and explosive plays against us running or throwing. You know, we've got to work on eliminating some of that. The 10-plus plays in passes, we're not sitting very well in that category. So that's got to improve. You know, we have improved on penalties. You know, that was something that was huge in our emphasis after the first ball game. And I think, you know, we've shown improvement in that area. That has got to continue. That we cannot regress with that. So, you know, those are a few things.
And how do you feel about your secondary after the game against Tennessee? Stites had a pretty big game, and you said Kylan Nelson is out. So, along with that, who would be taking the place of Kylan Nelson?
Well, Bo Hardy's the guy that ended up getting snaps. Javon Hagan is a safety that's prepared to play a fair number of snaps for us. So, you know, there's guys that have been taking reps, and Javon, by the way, has been a special teams player. He has really shown his toughness and speed and aggressiveness and tackling ability on special teams. He had a great game this past game, and so, you know, we have guys. The problem we have in the secondary, you know, coming back with experience was Davis.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that was it. You know, everybody else was going to have to learn on the run and keep improving. Now, they've had a number of passes thrown against them, so you know, I think all that work has probably been good for them. At times it's been tough on us. At times they've stepped up and shown what they're capable of doing. But you know, we've got to make sure that unit back there continues to operate and has limited breakdowns back there, because that's where your explosive plays generally come from, whether it's in the passing game or missed tackles or what have you.
You mentioned earlier in your opening statement about the offensive line doing such a good job at this point in the season. Could you elaborate a little more about that, from protecting Greg in the pocket to opening holes for the running backs no matter who's running the ball?
When you say elaborate on that, you mean
Can you
talk
a little
about
bit more
personnel or?
Personnel and how good of a job they've done this season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, I mentioned Jake Pruse after the first ball game. What he had 100 and some snaps. It's not the only game that he's had 100 snaps in. I think the second game was 102. And so he's been a warrior, and he's been a guy that he's going to battle you from the very beginning to the very end of the play. He will never, ever let up. And so he's got that kind of mentality, and you can't get him off the field with a ball bat. He does not want to come off, you know, and so you got to love that in a player. You know, Troy Watson has shown real athleticism as well as smartness in the game and ability to get things done at a high level, and so, you know, Joe Lowry, who's been playing hurt. I mean, you start going through that. You know, Darrell Wood, who has come off of an injury and really was spot playing last year because of an injury. Coop, the same way, he's banged up, and so those guys have come through a lot up there, and I think being under Coach Johnson for a period of time now, you know, those guys, most of them all been at least 2 years, you know, except for, you know, like Austin got thrown in, and obviously he doesn't have snaps and that. But those guys that have been coached by Coach Johnson, he's so detail-oriented that sometimes, you know, in being so detail-oriented, you got to be careful you don't have a guy going up to the line of scrimmage worrying about all those details, and then the ball snap, and you're not accomplishing much. You know, those guys are used to doing things now with great technique, and I think that's helped all of their play. And so we're a better offensive line for probably a lot of reasons.
Also, your wide receiving core, you only had 5 receivers last game. The first 2 games you had 9. And Sebastian, you accounted for a lot of the yards at Tennessee. How are you looking to get back to kind of your more offensive variety, more spread out kind of game against Gardner-Webb?
Well, we actually did spread things out quite a bit, as about the same. I mean, if you look at our 2-back sets, especially when Dorian went down, you know, you only got 2 backs left, and neither, you know, Poppy's 175 and Vinny's a little stockier, you know, but they're not, you know, 210-pound running backs, you know, to where you're comfortable with doing a lot of things out of the 2-back, and so that kind of eliminated, you know, that set for us, those sets for us a little bit. But we operated out of quite a bit of 3 wideouts and 1 tight end sets in different kind of groupings. So you're right, though, that not as many receivers played in the game. You know, it's just the nature of it. Sometimes you get a chance to have guys fit what you want in there at that given time. You know, Sebastian wasn't playing much in the Kansas game. First game didn't play.
Played about half against
Yeah,
State Center.
you know, so, you know, he's not on the field as much as he would normally be on the field should he be healthy. So that opens up opportunities for other guys to get on the field. And we have trust in a lot of those receivers to be able to play a lot. But sometimes you get in a rhythm and you just go with what you got.
What's the message playing an FCS club, knowing that 3 teams in your own division of your own league have lost to FCS teams already this season?
Yeah. Well, I think it's pretty clear to athletes, you know, we expected to beat Tennessee, you know, so Gardner-Webb expects to beat us. You know, there's a lot of athletes around this country, and schools, if they recruit hard and recruit well, are going to have their fair share, you know. Now, obviously, there's advantages for some teams in gathering athletes over others, but there's still a number of athletes to be spread around. And if you get the right collection of them, you know, you always have a chance. Quarterback play is always so special to putting points on the board. You know, you don't have to be a Power 5 or a Group of 5 conference team to have a great quarterback. You know, and really that's true pretty much across the the board. But so I don't normally have to say too much to our players about that. You know, that's a good point that you've got there. I'll mention that to them. But I think our players understand. We drill it in them from day one that, you know, we have got to step on the field every time and playing to our ability, maximizing it out if we're going to expect to be the kind of team we want to be. So we don't normally just prepare for a team per se, as far as power conference team or a FCS team or whatever. You know, we prepare to play our best no matter who we're playing, and if you do that, that kind of takes care of it. And if you drill it in them enough, it eventually comes home.
Coach, from the tape that you watched in Birmingham, what are some of the things that they do right?
Well, they're an odd front most of the time. They move really well. Their nose guard is really good. You know, they run a fair amount of option on offense, and so we're going to be seeing that. And obviously, you have to prepare for that. And if you don't prepare for it well, you don't get it done. You don't slow them down. And so there are definitely challenges there.
Are there a lot of similarities between Gardner-Webb and Texas State in terms of running that option?
I'd say Gardner-Webb runs it more. You know, we'll probably see more option from them than what we did from Texas State.